Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat on the Serious Angler Network, powered by X2 Power. And guys, today we've got an awesome show lined up, staying on the theme of bass boats, innovation, and everything that goes into the world of bass fishing right now. And to think we are rolling our way into March here, going to be soon sitting at the classic and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be exciting times for the industry. I love this time of the year. Tournaments are rolling and all kinds of new stuff's coming out, and it just it makes for a podcast and covering stuff a lot of fun, as well as just personally on the fishing side. But without further ado, we're going to bring in Chuck Pippin. Chuck is the marketing guy when it comes to Ikon Boats right now. Big release with Jacob Wheeler and Ikon Boats brand this year. New bass boat brand, which just love to see, in my opinion, in the industry. It drives innovation and makes everything better. So without further ado, let's bring Chuck in. Chuck, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well. I'm jealous of you in Florida.
Yeah,
There's snow on the ground in Colorado, and
there is zero snow here. It's been close to 90 the past few days.
wow, man. So what are the fish doing right now in your neck of the woods? It sounds like you're the Orlando area.
Yep.
You're rolling right now with guide stuff and all that you have going.
Yeah, they're the fish here. Um, a lot of people don't know this, but they're pretty much done spawning here by now. We
Right.
see spawners on the Kissimmee chain and throughout Central Florida as early as November, and just depending on the weather, it could be a 4 to even a 5.5 month spawn, just kind of all scattered out. I'm sure they're probably 90% done, and it's done this the last few years where it stays pretty warm in February, and everybody thinks it's spring, and then March hits, and we get 3 or 4 back-to-back cold fronts, and I think that where the rest of the country, or a lot of the country, the fish wait for the water to warm up to spawn. Our fish here a lot of times are waiting for it to get cool enough to spawn.
Mm,
If that makes sense.
gotcha.
So
Gotcha. It's just crazy to me to think about that. Just the opposite, right? Of
yeah,
cooling to then the fish going
yeah,
to bed kind of a thing.
yeah. I get lots of messages this time of year about people coming. It's spring break for the whole world
Right.
this month, and they're coming and asking if the fish have started spawning yet. And I have to tell them they're done. So it's always a big shock to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Well, as we're kind of talking about here, you have been in the guiding business for a long time and have kind of, off air, we were taking a little bit of a step back from that, still
Yeah,
doing some guiding. But
a
how
little
did you
bit,
get into the position you're in with Ikon Boats and everything that
man.
you've got going?
It's kind of a long story. I'll try and make it as quick as I can. So I don't even know. Years and years ago, when I was a kid, I was one of those kids that was I wanted to fish more than anything. Growing up, I grew up in Ocala, about an hour and a half north of Orlando,
Okay.
and no one in my family fished tournaments. Nobody fished for a living, definitely, but I was obsessed with it, and I watched all the guys on TV back then. I'm 46 years old, so it was Roland Martin, Bill Dance, Hank Parker, Orlando Wilson, Jimmy Houston, those guys.
Hmm.
Um, and someone told me, I don't know who it was, that I should major in business management and marketing if I wanted to bass fish for a living.
Hmm.
We'll never remember who that is. Um, and I went to a junior college in my hometown to get 2 years in and then decide where I wanted to transfer. And I think it was my very first day of class in public speaking 101. A kid sitting next to me stood up and said that his favorite hobbies were hunting and fishing, and didn't listen to what his name was. But afterward, that was my favorite hobbies were hunting and fishing. So
Hmm.
afterwards, I asked him. I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Clewiston, Florida. And I only knew Clewiston, Florida because of Lake Okeechobee and Roland Martin's Marina. And I said, that's cool. I'd like to go down there sometime and experience all that. Excuse me. And he said, I said, have you ever met Roland Martin? And he goes, yeah, I met him like the day I was born. And I said, how'd you meet him the day you were born? He goes, well, he's my dad. So I didn't know I was sitting next to Scott Martin,
Wow.
who was Scott Martin, but he wasn't the Scott Martin that everybody knows now because he was just an 18-year-old kid. So
Yeah.
we became good friends. We actually fished that day.
Okay.
And then I ended up moving to Okeechobee, and that's how it all started. I guided for 5 years down there. And luckily, not because I foresaw the future or anything like that or had any direction, I inadvertently learned how to build websites. And no one had websites back in 1998, or very few people did. So I ended up being one of the first few bass fishermen on the internet, which kind of launched my whole guiding career.
Wow.
5 years into that, I moved back to the Orlando area because you couldn't ignore all the business here. Also, because Dean Rojas had just broken all the records on the Kissimmee chain, and we lost a lot of our business the next year on Okeechobee because the fishing on Okeechobee didn't change, but people follow media. Like,
that's crazy. So you literally saw them because of that tournament, because
of that one 49-pound 2-ounce stringer. We lost like 30% of our business going into the next year.
That is insane.
And I just wanted to move back to Orlando because a lot of the guys I grew up with were here. And so I just kind of went from there, got here, kept fishing. I was fishing in the FLW tour, traveling around with Scott back then. Wasn't doing very good at all. Made one check and then left the FLW tour, switched to Skeeter boats, and our big dog just ran up behind me. Sorry.
You're good.
Switched to Skeeter boats and started fishing the Bass Opens. Barely missed qualifying for the Elite Series the 1 year, and then realized that that I did better at coaching people in fishing than playing, being the tournament stuff. Although I enjoy fishing tournaments a lot, it was just, to be honest with you, more profitable and more steady of an income being a tournament, being a guide. Right. So I worked real hard at building up my guide business, and got to where I was bringing in, 800 to 900 trips a year over a 20-something year period, and contracting out all my overflow to other guides and working with a lot of the younger guides that like to fish artificial lures, because here in Florida, if you search through the internet, you'll see it's a lot of live bait fishing.
Sure.
And which I did and do, but I concentrated on teaching people how to fish artificial lures, which, just being one of the only ones that did that, it made it that much easier to build my guide service up. And going along with the theme of marketing, when I started, there was no such thing as social media. That's hard for younger guys to understand. I was there before it was created, and I had to force myself to learn it by hours and hours of reading, learning algorithms and SEO, and surrounding myself with the right people. I got into where I was doing marketing consulting with some pretty big companies in the fishing industry and certain fishermen. And that kind of all led to, been guiding for 25 years. I've done around 6,000 guide trips. I'm not tired of it, but at some point you're ready to, not for the next step, but to add something to it. So a couple of years ago, I started a lure business called CPF Lures with a business partner, Jason George. And he's my equal partner in that. And right about the same time, I learned about Ikon Boats. So we're going back. I first started kind of working with them, not for them, about 2.5 years ago. That's how long of a process. I think back the first meeting I had with them, it was just a CAD drawing, and it just kind of went from there. So that brings me to this seat right here, working on the marketing team with quite a few other people and getting ready to launch a bass boat in a few weeks at the Classic.
Wow.
Little stressful, but exciting.
That's incredible. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I think what I love the most about this industry, in compared to a lot of industries, is that there is that building effect that you're talking about, where it just kind of like compounds, like your interest, right? Of just like, you're starting this guide service, and then you see this kind of this niche starting with websites, and that wasn't a thing, and then you were the top guy in that, and then you build it out to the point where you're subcontracting guide trips and you're sending stuff off. And then it's like, I agree. Like, what's cool is, like, it almost seems like guys don't let go of something, which is, you still have your foot in it, but then you take the next step into starting another business or another career position. And so it just makes it fun to me, because I don't think I'm ever going to be somebody who's going to be, stuck, locked in the same career for 30 years. I just am not that way,
Yeah. And it's, I've always tried to help. I had a lot of help from the Martins, but getting other help with like business direction and that kind of stuff, I kind of had to learn it on my own, and I made a ton of mistakes. So I've kind of made it a point to help other people, a lot of these younger guides, and kind of give them a vision and keep their focus on not having all their eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. That's something that's great about the bass fishing industry, because you can have multiple streams of income. So like, it's led me to where I work full-time for Ikon Boats. Look, I get to work remotely. I'm here in Florida and they're based in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my guide business. 90% of the trips are being done by buddies of mine, guides. They don't work for me. They all have their own businesses. A lot of them are just getting going, so I'm filling them up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I still get to fish tournaments, and I have my lure business. So you just kind of
stack it,
and it just keeps opening more doors. So and that's one of the big questions I get from a lot of high school and college anglers. They didn't have that when I was a kid either. There was no such thing as high school bass fishing or college bass fishing.
Mm-hmm.
As a lot of them don't have that direction as to like how to get to that next point. You know, it's like, I got to get some sponsors so I can do this. And I got to get some sponsors. If you sponsor me, I'll start building up my social media.
Right.
And I have to tell them, I'm like, you have to do all that on your own. And then, the stuff comes later. You have to show what you can do for the company before these companies, before they'll even think about giving you anything. And if you think that they're giving you stuff, then you're on the wrong path anyway, because you're basically working for the products that you're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And if you work hard enough, it can turn into products and money.
Right.
And there's just a little bit of misdirection in that with some of the programs that are going right now.
I agree. No, that's wise advice. And I think that's great for anyone interested in the fishing industry, and something that I've had a lot of conversations with founders on this show, and then just internally with our team at Serious Angler. And it's like, the biggest thing is kind of starting, right? And just getting in and getting a gig or doing something. And then it just seems like opportunities pop up, right?
Yeah.
That just come up out of nowhere, and whether you take those opportunities or not.
You have to put yourself in the right places for things to happen. And I just don't think a lot of guys get the message. Not get the message, it doesn't sound right, but they're not set on the right path. They think that winning tournaments is how you get all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of really successful tournament anglers out there that win a lot of money, and it goes right back into their expenses because they don't have the endorsements to balance that out.
Right.
It's because they're not that great at the promotion side. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I try and help people. And what I have learned is you can dish this information out to lots of people, but there's only a small percentage of them that seem to get it. And those are usually the ones that they continue to ask the right questions. And I've tried to help so many people, and you just like, now when I start helping someone, I can usually tell within like 5 minutes whether they're going to make it or not. I feel like I can. And then, then there's certain guys, and I'll tell the guys that they're asking the right questions. I'm like, you're not bothering me with these questions. Keep asking them, because I can tell that you're wanting to learn. You're not expecting me to do everything for you. You're coming back to me with questions on the information that you found on your own, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, I dig it. That's what this show's about, man. Yeah. And that's what's great about it. But man, we gotta get into the reason you're here, and that's Ikon Boats.
That is Ikon Boats right here.
Right.
Big deal.
Releasing at the Classic. It's going to be incredible to see. Excited. I'll be there at the Classic. I'll have to stop in and say hello.
Definitely.
Check out the
I will
boat.
be there also, the whole way before and just a little bit after.
Oh, awesome. Well, excited to see it all go down there. But, there's been a little bit of information released out, right? Obviously, Jacob Wheeler's fishing on the boat. You've got one yourself. There's a couple flying around. You see in pictures, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Under the radar to some extent on some details. But, I think a great starting point would just be the Team Marine guys. I had them on before I was even connected with Serious Angler. Great folks, and hard on stuff a lot of the times, right? They're going to say their opinion.
I was worried. To be honest with you, because we don't have a customer base to back up any negative things that he could have said. Mm-hmm. But then it has to go back to, we didn't just make this boat overnight. We spent a lot of time and a lot of testing and a lot of conversations. And there's a lot of engineers up there that are way smarter than I am. And then the product, I was listening to every word that he said while he was saying it into the camera. Like this, and going, that's exactly what I would have said. And so it worked out. the product supported what we wanted to come out of that.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. And kind of through his videos, looked at the boat and have just seen, I think just some general features to me that stuck out. I'd love to kind of break down with you right now. But really wide front deck, interesting. We've got a little bit of a bend back into the kind of the console area.
Hip flare, little forward
hip flare. All right.
Yeah,
break that down for us or walk us through some of that.
There's a few reasons. If you we don't have a boat right. Actually, we do have a boat right here. Hold on 1 second.
You got a model boat or something?
I do.
How cool is that?
Look at that.
Here, I'll make it just so you.
I don't know if yeah, there you go. There's a bad glare, but you can see our hip flare here, which keeps the deck wide. And if you're on the back, if you started from the back line and moved forward, you would see and just continued a say normal bass boat line, you'd see how the deck would narrow down. So that was able to. It adds style. It looks cool.
Yeah,
I think it looks cool. A lot of people think it looks cool, but it allows us to keep that deck bigger than anybody else's deck,
super wide,
and not interfere with the drivability or rideability of the boat. Yeah, okay. It doesn't interfere with it at all.
Wow.
So,
wow,
that's part of what we call our iconic terrain, and it is a massive on the 21-foot boat. It is a massive front deck.
Right.
So you can stand up there on either. Two guys can stand up on either side of the trolling motor, flipping and pitching, and not even worry about bumping elbows. And you can walk around the front of the trolling motor. There's a big platform there in front of all of your electronics. You're right on the water, and you could sight fish from right there. Put your poles down and right at the edge of the water. So
wow,
a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
pretty innovative, and I think that a ton of guys, right? I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but gosh, it's got to be high of tournament anglers that fish team tournaments, and having that ability to have that space and a bunch of rods too, right? I mean, especially with you guys, you got rods everywhere, and
you put like 40 rods in the rod locker. So, and one of the things was my big. I've had 26 bass boats. I was with Ranger for quite a few years. Early on, and then the lap before here, and then with Skeeter for like 14 years in between. And they're great boats. And show this model again, but we're only an inch wider across here. We're 98 inches. So you see a lot of 96, 97, 8-inch wide boats, but it's up here that matters where it's wide. And we kind of made the comment that early on that like bass boats are expensive these days, and everybody talks about how wide their boats are. But it's not the guy that's making all the payments on the boat that gets to experience how wide it is, because he's standing up in the most narrow part of the boat.
Right.
So what if we just kept it wide all the way to the front, so that not just his buddies that like to stand on the front deck with him can enjoy it also.
Right.
And in doing that, it made room for bigger rod locker, bigger starboard storage, wider, center storage, and all that stuff. So,
right. Now, and with everything. And this was a conversation with another boat brand last week, but it's just everything, there's give and take here, right?
Yeah.
You can't have it all. So by doing that, by expanding that with further forward, I love that idea, because I've always kind of hated how rod lockers, right? They narrow down as you go, and just for storage and everything else. But so with that, obviously, if you're making it less narrow, you're going to lose some speed when it comes down to things. What other negatives do you see there? Obviously, there's a lot of positives there. What kind of, I guess, what changes?
I am biased. It's hard for me to come up with negatives because I'm, emotionally involved in the boat, sort of. But keeping it wide all the way to the front, part of our hull system, our HSS hull system, was about stability and control.
Okay.
And feeling safe and you can drive this boat how you want to drive this boat. You have guys like Andy from Team Marine who are going to drive it like most people won't drive it. You can sit here and do 360s in this boat without, cavitating or blowing out the prop, just locked all the way.
That's crazy.
And I've had a few people ask me about the speed that's lost. And there really isn't speed that's. I mean, my boat's 21 feet 10 inches long, has a 250 Mercury on it, and I've put videos on my own social media. It is completely loaded on the front.
Heavy.
I have 3 12-inch Solixes I have the Mega 360 and the Mega Live Target lock deal. I mean, I don't think it looks like a transformer on the front of my boat, but it'll run 69 miles per hour.
Wow.
And some people, well, my boat goes 73. The thing with this boat is I fished a lot of Bassmasters tournaments, FLW tournaments, other local tournaments, and that kind of stuff. And I could probably count on one hand how many tournaments where the water conditions are nice enough that you can even run a boat wide open.
Right.
So instead of having the fastest boat on a calm day, we worked on having the fastest boat during tournament time when there's a chop on the water. So you might have a guy who claims his boat goes 75 miles an hour, and it might go 75 miles an hour, but will it go 75 miles an hour when your boat number 75? Probably not, because there's boats doing this. And when we wanted a boat that would run 69 miles per hour, when it's slick, and 68.5 miles an hour when there's a 2-foot chop. So that's kind of what went into it. And, you can say you have a fast boat, but when we're passing you in tournament time and not getting our, rupturing any discs on our back or anything like that, then that's kind of what we aim for.
I think that's a good point. And I think that I've always been, to be honest with you, a fast boat guy, and I've always liked that speed. And I've always tried to find a happy medium there where when there is a 2-foot chop, or, even if it's bigger than that, I can still feel safe and comfortable in that boat. And there's so much of that too. You're right. Like, so many guys are like, man, my boat does 83 miles an hour. It's like, man, you know how many times you can actually run 83 miles and in a tournament that has 100+ boats? Like, very rarely, right?
Right. Yeah, and I take very little responsibility for how the boat turned out. 2.5 years ago, they asked me what I liked. There was a lot of engineers sitting at the HCB plant because there wasn't an Ikon plant at the time.
Right.
We had a CAD drawing and a bunch of very smart engineers, and Brent Butler, who, if you're familiar with the company, and he's a guy in Tennessee, and he works full time. He's basically my equivalent, but more on the production side of things.
Right.
Okay. And tournament fisherman, that kind of stuff. He was there, and they're asking me what I like about bass boats, and I said I could tell you it's probably the same stuff everybody else likes about bass boats, but I've had for 20+ years, I spend 300 days a year in one, so I can very easily tell you all the stuff I don't like. And if we could just work at eliminating all the stuff that I don't like about bass boats, we'll have something that everybody will want to buy. And I think that's what we did. And then they even surprised me with some things when I finally saw a 60%, finished product. So that's what I tell a lot of people, because I'm getting people saying, like, my DMs have been lit up. Mine have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you'll see the comments. People will see a picture of my boat turned sideways like this on Instagram, and they go, it looks just like any other bass boat. Right. Which you're not going to get a good description of it from a little picture anyway. And I just keep telling people, I said it is a bass boat, but it's all the things that you're not able to see yet that separate us from everybody else. So that's what we kind of worked on.
I like it. I like that thought process of going with the problems, because I think everyone that has spent time in a bass boat and has especially had multiple bass boats, that's what's I've only had 2 bass boats at this time, but like, just seeing the differences and spending a lot of time in other people's boats, like everything, there's like some little, water gets into this compartment here. The cooler doesn't stay cold because if it's raining, water's going in there. There's little things on boats that just are frustrating and annoying.
The industry gets away with a lot. Like if you went and spent the equivalent amount of money on a car, and the radio was, was crooked, or like your seat didn't adjust, you would be at the dealership screaming. But for some reason in the bass boat industry, people are like, my cockpit holds 3 inches of water when it's leaning to the side. And they're like, that's just how bass boats are. I'm cool with it. No, you spent $100,000 on that. You're not you shouldn't be standing in puddles. Stuff should be dry right now. So that's just the kind of stuff that we tried to fix. And I think that's what kind of won over Andy from Team Marine, because being his 30 years in the service industry, that's all he deals with is problems. And I think he really appreciated that we eliminated a lot of problems.
Right.
And it's not going to make once these boats start getting sold, I think it's not going to make a lot of service guys too happy, because that's how they make their money is fixing stuff. So
Right.
we're
Well,
trying to eliminate that.
And I mean, okay, like, and I have that debate a ton with people just as far as the vehicle versus bass boat thing. It's just incredible to me. You know, you can
Right.
have a 70, 80, 90, 100, $130,000 bass boat, and they always have problems. And boats
Yeah.
it's just the most frustrating thing to me. And the amount of time traveling at tournaments that I've spent fixing a boat or
Yeah.
fixing someone else's boat, you know.
Yeah.
And to Andy's point with all of that, I think what I was impressed with on watching that video, when he's breaking down the boat, was the ability to open compartments, pull, you know, like other boats have, but be able to pull stuff out. But
Right.
to me, you had access to everything without
Right.
tools. And that
Yeah.
is the amount of time on the water that I have been in a tournament, in practice, whatever, trying to fix something, or some wire came
Yeah.
loose. Like that to me could be the difference in winning a tournament, because you know you can get to it quickly, you know, and
Yeah.
have that
A
ability to
lot
fix
of
something.
your bass fishermen are going to be, you're going to have bass fishermen that don't know how to work on anything, or
Right.
they do and they don't choose to.
Mhm.
But a lot of guys are handy, you
Mhm.
know, pretty handy. So we tried to make this boat not so it's a fixed DIY boat, but
Right.
so if you can actually get to a problem quickly,
Mhm.
you know, you're beating these boats like through, some people beat them through 4 and 5 feet of water, waves and stuff. You go up to Lake Champlain or
Oh,
Lake
yeah.
Erie or places like that, those lakes are never calm.
Mhm.
And we would be lying if we said nothing's ever going to go wrong with this boat.
Sure.
And that was a lot of discussions. I was only in this many of them, so I can't imagine how many they had. And we basically made it saying, like, we know you're probably going to break something at some point.
Mhm.
Would be lying. You cannot break thing. You cannot make something that has movable parts and say it's never going to break.
Right.
So we know you're going to break it at some point. Let's make it easy to fix. So that was kind of the ease of maintenance and being able to get at stuff. Like my boat, they would have rigged it for me completely there at the factory, but I've rigged almost probably 80% of the boats I've ever had. So
Mhm.
I put all of my equipment from Minn Kota and Humminbird on the boat myself.
Yeah.
And I told them I wanted to do that so I could become, being, you know, on the marketing team, I go, that will make me more familiar with the boat, as in it was the easiest boat I've ever rigged, because I didn't have to rewire it. You know, that was
Right.
a big thing in our
Additional.
wiring harness. You
Mhm.
don't have to. We know that people are going to put a bunch of units on these things and that they're going to change them out. So instead of having to buy all these aftermarket mounts and take it to a wiring guru to have them run several $1,000s worth of a new wiring harness through, we just went ahead and built it into the boat. So
Great.
I changed nothing on the boat except hooked up 5 big giant 12-inch units on it with
Wow.
all factory everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's awesome. I think
yeah,
that it's been crazy to me to see. I'm glad to see that Icon is coming out with a wiring harness that's acceptable for that, because it has been ridiculous to me to see guys, like you're saying, spend
right.
$80,000, $90,000 on a boat and then immediately take it to someone to go change all the wiring that came from
Spend
the dealership.
They spend $5,000 sometimes on mounts and wiring,
Oh,
and it's
100%.
like the boat companies can't be surprised that people are doing this, because most people that are going to write that check or finance that amount of money, they're not going to want a stripped down boat. And
Mhm.
then as soon as a company comes out with the next generation 4, generation
Right.
5, they got to have it, and then it goes on there. So there's not a lot of holes to be drilled because of the way everything's constructed, and switch your electronics out, all the wiring's just right there and ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. And I think another point with Icon that it seems like you guys are marketing a lot towards, at least in the beginning here, is some of the technology around the live wells, and then just the
Mm-hmm.
screen and everything that you're able to do. Let's get into the live wells and that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So our live well system is patented for, it's the L2 live well system. The
Mhm.
L stands for Latona. He owns, I think it's called Southeast Pond, which
Okay.
we have some content coming out on him. It's a whole video about why we built our live well. Excuse me, the way we did.
Okay.
Um, it's all about fish conservation.
Mm.
You know, letting those building for the future. You know, it's the future of fishing. So can't a lot of tournaments, especially down here in Florida, a lot of dead fish and some of these, especially as you get anytime after May, our water's up high up in the 80s and gets into the mid 90s. See a lot of dead fish, and we can't do it for every bass boat right now, but we got that in this one where it's just easy to use. You can keep I think he already said it in the video, that it has a chiller plate in it, and it keeps the water temperature. You can keep the water temperature the same as what you caught the fish in. Wow. People don't understand how that live well just cooks in the sun under that deck.
For sure.
And we have 74-degree water temperatures right now on Lake Toho down in Kissimmee. And when we were out there fishing, it wasn't that hot out, but my live well temperature, without having anything turned on, because I can see it on the screen, had gotten up to 82. Without having I didn't have it turned on. It had gotten up to 82 just from the sun beating down on the deck.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is it like when it's 118-degree heat index here in Florida? What is it getting like in that live well? And no wonder all these fish are dying.
Yeah.
Or when you're catching them, the northern strains of fish in the summertime, it might be 80-degree surface temperature, which is what you're pumping into your live well. But you're catching them out of 30 feet of water, and it might be 72 degrees down there. So you're able to, this allows you to keep the temperature acclimated to what the fish are used to, which stresses them out less. And then the fact of everything being automated, keeping it full all the way to the top so there's no sloshing. These boat companies talk about how big their live wells are. A 44-gallon live well that fills up 2/3 of the way because there's an overflow. So it's a 44-gallon. Be like buying a gallon of milk. When it's a 1 gallon of milk, don't worry about it only being half full. You got a gallon. It's not a 44-gallon live well if it fills up 2/3 of the way.
Yeah.
Ours fills all the way to the surface to take the sloshing out. So the fish are basically encased in a full block of water.
Wow.
They're not running into anything as you're hitting waves and stuff like that. So it's got autofill maintain. There's things that impressed me. So you're filling your live well up and it's halfway full and you're like, crap, I got to get to another spot. So you take off. I have mine set. You can adjust all the auto settings too. Okay. As soon as I go over 7 miles per hour, the fill stops so that my fill pumps aren't running dry while I'm on plane.
I've always thought about that.
When I sit back down and go 7, because it's all hooked up to its own GPS system. As soon as I sit back down and I get 7 miles an hour under, it continues filling it back up.
Wow.
It's the little stuff like that impressed me, because you're not going to burn your pumps out in 2 months.
No.
But people I keep my boats for a year. Other people keep their boats for 8 or 10 years. How long you're going to make those pumps last longer. And then I've just been in so many tournaments where, you have 25, 26, maybe 30 pounds, and you can't concentrate. When you have 30 pounds, you don't really matter what you catch. You still want to catch more big ones. So you're so worried about the fish that are in the live well, right? Now we tried to take that out of there. You can just let them be. Put it on auto, keep them in basically the same environment, water type environment they were in, and concentrate on fishing. And then feel good about knowing that you did more than everybody else when it's time to let them go. And I told you there were some things that surprised me. Brent, who I spent a lot of time with when I'm up there being the fisherman stuff, I think it was last year sometime, and he has what we call the DV boat. It's one of the developmental boats.
Okay.
I was looking through everything as I was getting ready to drive back to Florida, and I noticed a container in the back. And I go, "What is that?" And he goes, "What do you think it is?" I go, "I don't know what it is." He goes, "That's for juice, like your G juice or your Fish Alive or everything like that." And I said, "What?" I go, "Dude, you didn't even tell me about that. How did you? I've been here for a week and you didn't even tell me about that." He goes, "I wanted to see if you'd notice it." So instead of having to worry about mixing that stuff up or whatever, we tested a bunch of different juices to see if they would, like your G juice and all the crystallized stuff, to see if once it's mixed up, if it would separate, and all the stuff we tested just kind of stays together. So you can fill, it's a 64-ounce container that's part of our automated L2 live well system. You can fill up and you can manually inject it into your live well, or put it into, or program it automatically. Say every 90 minutes it injects 3/4 of an ounce of juice into your live well. Wow. Sprays it right down in there.
That's
crazy. It's little things like that. I thought about that the whole way home. I go, dude, that's a big deal. And you didn't tell me about that. He goes, yeah, we came up with that. I just wanted to see if you noticed that. So I said, this is the little stuff that's going to make people want to buy these boats, because you don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. Spilling it on your carpet. Did I put too much in? You know, they have instructions on there. You know, put this amount for this, so you can just tell it half ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce every however many minutes, and you don't have to worry about it the rest of the day.
Wow.
So it's all that little stuff that I told them, or my opinion a long time ago. I said, if our bass boat, if this boat turns out just like every other bass boat, but we have this L2 live well system, and then that's the only difference, it will sell the mess out of them. I said, but if we have that and 8 or 10 other things that set us apart, then we'll like steer the whole. I feel like the whole bass boat industry, and we've had a lot of, is going this direction, like this.
Okay.
They're all kind of jogging along together. You know, we're going to change our seats and jack the price up $8,000 and tell everybody it's a new model. Well, we're going to change the look of our console and jack ours up $7,000. And then they go, okay, that's good, but don't do anything else, because we got to stay on the same path, right? And then we're going to come along and go like this, and they're going to be like, you guys were supposed to talk to us, and we didn't, because we don't care. So then we're going to go off in this direction, and they're either going to have to fade or follow us. And so that's kind of like the whole purpose of this, of Ikon Boats, is to just make products that people want and deserve. That's what we're trying to do.
Wow. I like it. And it's crazy, man, that technology in the live wells. Like, I feel like all that stuff in a tournament day, like worrying about ice, right? Like, very common thing of like getting ice in the morning in a summer tournament and throwing it in your live well. And then you have the chlorine of the ice, and you're
right.
All
people
those,
don't think about that.
Right.
The chlorine, you know,
and all those little, and then G juice and all that, like all those little things take up time and mental capacity, and you can only make so many decisions in a day.
Now you just worry about catching more fish. So if I'm going to be, I'll tell you a little bit more about this in a little bit, but I'm going to be fishing more tournaments again. And like, I don't have any excuses now.
You've got
all too much about my fish. Now it's just like, man, you got the boat. If you're not catching them now, then maybe you should just stay in the marketing department. You know?
I like it. And it's just those kind of little things, I feel like, go a long way to bass fishermen, and especially too, in my opinion, your bigger, I would say, like your customers that are going to keep coming back, or guys who are versed in being in a lot of boats and spending a lot of time. Like, those are going to be the difference makers, and maybe pull from a brand, right? Of someone who's been super brand tied for a long time. But it's like, oh, maybe I want to try something else. This kind of is that opportunity for new technologies.
Yeah. And make the other companies change, you know, and it's a process. I mean, they were well at work at it before I started, you know, getting involved. It was the summer of 2020 when I started talking to them, and it's been a big carrot dangling out in front of my face, waiting for it to get started. And now we're like 3 weeks away, and it's like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now it's happening, you know?
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
Now, and so comes out at the Classic. I guess the two biggest questions that I can think of from just a consumer standpoint, or things that I've seen, is like, number one, when are they going to be available for or not just for order, but also start shipping and that kind of a thing? And then
we're building boats now.
Okay.
Yeah, we have dealers signed up that have boats ordered, and that are getting boats like in the next few. They're going to have boats. There's some of the dealers that made early orders are going to have boats, like right when we launch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Right at the end of March.
I mean, right at the end of March. So it's not going to be one of these things where it's like, here we are, place your orders, and we may get a couple boats out in about a year.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there was a lot of delays because in launching this company because of COVID. I mean, that's when we started, was when all that stuff hit.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of frustrating for everyone, but I think a lot of those delays have actually made it a better boat and a better company, because now you get to mull over things a little bit longer, you know, analyze more and that kind of stuff. And the boat that we have now is probably way better than what we would have had if we'd have launched 2 years ago.
Sure.
Because we got to test them. we got to put the couple boats that were built, we got to put 2 years worth of wear and tear on them and figure out stuff that would happen. How many other companies tested a boat model for 2 years, the actual model, before they started selling it to people?
Right. Right. I feel like none. And
Right.
like
Yeah.
I think the only thought that I have that would be a negative towards that would just be the timing. Do you feel like, and this may not be like you're saying too completely in your department of things, but just interest rates have risen.
Right.
We're kind of at a peak from a I feel like the bass boat market exploded over the
It
last
did
few years,
explode.
right?
I've
Just
thought about that because it's part
boats,
of marketing. Yeah.
right, right. And I guess, do you feel like that there's a concern there with rates coming and dealers, struggling? Do you see a
I
concern there with the
think
launch now?
I'm not concerned with the launch. I think that's more on a financial aspect of it. Our parent company is HCB Yachts. And when you get into that type of industry, that clientele is more the upper 1%.
Right, right.
And if you
Point
study
zero zero
economics,
one.
they're not as affected by economic downturns. So
Sure.
that is our parent company. So of any new boat company launching, I think we'd be prepared for just about anything financially.
Right.
And there's a lot of smart people in the finance department that have thought all about that. And we also have a lot of people. We have a lot of people that are ready to buy boats right now. So we know we're going to sell some,
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you get into that financial crunch, there's still going to be enough people to buy a boat. Except I think they just start thinking more about the value of the money that what they're getting in return for what they're spending.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that's why that just goes back to the quality of it. Not saying there's not other quality boats out there. I'd be lying if I said every boat was here and we're building the only quality boat. But we put a lot of time and effort into, I wouldn't be running this boat. That's been my whole thing for my whole career is I cannot promote crap. So if you I've represented other companies, and there's just been times where it's like, listen, I'm just lying to everyone when I tell them this is great. So I'm going to move on. And this one, I took a full-time position with them and negated something I built for 25, and I'm negating something I've been building for 25 years. So I truly believe that, like, in what we did. And, the financial terms, I've been doing this I've seen it. And
I was going to say,
guiding.
You've seen this, especially buying boats. And
here's the thing with guiding is no one needs to go on a guide trip.
It's not a need.
No, they don't. When I grew up, I didn't know there were fishing guides because we didn't have the money to pay someone to take us fishing.
Right.
So I learned that when I was in college. I'm like, there's people paying people to take. I'll do that. People pay me to take
Sign me up.
Sign me up. So I've seen that every 4 years when there's a presidential election, no matter who everybody thinks is going to win, everybody tightens up on their wallets. And so you have these little dips, and it's always like, then you'll have a major recession. Then you have it where everybody's spending money like crazy. Then the American dollar's weak, so you have all the people from Europe and Canada and everything. Then the American dollar is really strong, and then you just have all American clients. So it always seems like it's taking forever while it's happening. But then when you look back on it, it's like, well, that recession was only like 2 years. And if you can't last through a 2-year recession or 3-year recession, what type of business do you actually have?
100%.
So I don't think that's a major, it's obviously a concern. It should be a concern for anybody that's in business, but I don't think it's a major concern of ours or whether we're going to sell enough boats or not.
Sure.
So
sure. Good answer.
We're hoping we can build enough.
Yeah. That's it. That's the other thing is, and what's, I guess, nice a little bit from that perspective, it seems like motors are becoming, more available every day. And it seems like we're kind of away from that, just little parts not being able to come in. And so hopefully, that's a good timing from that standpoint of being able to like push stuff.
Yeah. I think even if we were able to launch 2 years ago, I don't know if we would have been able to get the products that we needed to build the boats. And now we're able to get most of those, and we've had to develop some of our own.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I tried to get them to make an Ikon motor, but they
They said,
that's enough, Pippin. Stop. No.
yeah, that's it's one thing that's always boggled my mind, and
Yeah.
it's kind of everywhere. But the freshwater market, it's this. They're so limited motor wise. You know,
Yeah.
I like competition. I like seeing
Yeah.
multiple brands, and it
And
makes
I
me
was
better.
sponsored by the one that went out 2 years ago. I was with Evinrude for the last 5. I might have been bad for Evinrude because I was with them in '98 through 2000.
Okay.
When OMC went bankrupt, and I switched to Mercury for a year, and then to Yamaha, and then I was with Yamaha that whole time and went back to Evinrude, and then they went out of business again. So
don't go around Chuck with motors, man.
Something about me and Evinrude don't click real well. No, but I like the Evinrude motors. I love my G2s. But
there's a lot of people
so basically you have Mercury, Yamaha, Suzuki is a small part, and then some other ones. And that was kind of another theme with this. Anytime you OEM a product, like if we said we're going to only run Mercury outboards, right? Mercury has a big market, but there's some people that are Yamaha till they die. You're going to have some people that are big Suzuki fans. And if we were Mercury only or Yamaha only or Suzuki only, the people that are fans of those other motors they wouldn't buy our products.
Right. So
we decided to not be motor specific. Right now, as far as I know, we're set up with Mercury and Yamaha, but it's not doors closed. You know,
I like that because
we'll make it happen.
Well, it's kind of always bothered me how this industry has been. I looked forever. Yeah. I run a Phoenix boat with a Yamaha on it. That's a hard find, right? Yeah. Just I've heard there's contracts that, you know, Mercury has to have X amount of motors on these boats. And then obviously White River Marine Group, you've got all Mercuries always. So and Skeeter's always a Yamaha. So like that stuff to me, I like that ability to customize it how you want. And the other thing, especially at least in our Western states, it's a pain in the butt. We don't have all that many great dealers around us, right? So we have to travel far for dealer work. And, you know, there's not always a Yamaha tech, and there's not always a, you know, tech somewhere. So you can kind of customize.
And I've spent my whole entire career with Minn Kota. And then I can't remember what year it was when Johnson Outdoors purchased Yamaha or took over, not Yamaha, Humminbird. I've been running Minn Kota and Humminbird basically my whole career. And as a part of their pro staff, I've worked very closely with them, did a lot of their photo shoots and commercials, which was always fun. And I basically told them when I had to tell them about the Ikon thing, I said, now I know, because you guys know me, that you think you got an inside track to be an OEM. I go, trust me, you guys have your own, you guys build your own brand. We're going to build our brand. Right. And they completely understood. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I said, we're not going to be electronic specific either.
Yeah. Good.
Especially with somebody like Wheeler who mixes, every time I see him, I go, wasn't there a Lariance on that? Right. Yeah. I put a Humminbird one on here this time. And I got a Garmin up here, but I think for the next term, I'm going to switch these around and put this other brand here. Yeah. And I said, so we're not going to be motor or electronic specific. That way you can just order the boat. Why would you ignore parts of the market? Like if this one electronics brand has 15% of the market, why would we not want to sell? Why would we want to close off that 15% of the market and never sell a boat to anybody? So people can equip the boats the way they want. There's no OEM packaging where the price for these two front and rear or electronics are built into the price. And if you don't want those because of our contracts, we're not really going to take the price out of them out, but we're going to add retail on for the ones that happens a lot. And with our boats, it's just whatever electronics you want, or don't put electronics on and do it afterwards. You know, so custom that HCB, the Hydro Sports custom yachts, we're trying to bring the custom into the bass boat industry too. So
I like it
with a lot of different things.
Yeah. Now at this point, is there a price point on these boats? Do you have anything pricing wise on the 21-foot model?
That's one of the things that I can't release yet. So that will be released at the Classic. And unless something's changed from we're going to have 2 boats at the Classic.
Okay.
2 boats in our booth. And they're going to be rigged a little bit differently or set up a little bit differently. And those boats are going to be priced as shown.
Oh, okay.
There's no need to do a nationally advertised price, because if you steady bass boats.
Oh, yeah.
Dig into the nationally advertised prices of some of these boats, and then go find a boat that somebody bought that has the equipment on that was on that nationally advertised price.
Right.
If are you gonna buy a 21-foot boat and put an 80-pound thrust,
right, or
fully manual trolling motor on it? Probably not.
right,
Or you wouldn't be buying a 21-foot boat.
right.
So there's no need to do a nationally advertised price because of all the custom stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, so I think when you see the prices on those boats there, people will be able to get an idea of what the pricing will be. Like some people asked me and they said, well, is that $100,000 boat? I said, well, I have $30,000 worth of Minn Kota and Humminbird products on it.
Right.
What do you think?
Right.
If you take one of these units off, I have $16,000 worth of graphs on my boat. Yeah. Way overkill.
Right.
It is. I have 3 units that are 16. You can fish with one. So what do you think this is? You know what I mean? So yeah. I remember when we first put GPS on the front of the boat, and I was like, dude, I got a GPS on the console and up front now. And I was like, it's just, I'm working waypoints that I can see up here. It was just the craziest thing ever. And now I'm thinking 3's nice, but I wouldn't have to split this screen if I had a 4th one, you know?
Man, so. I've got two 12s on the front, and I've got two 12s at the back, and I just can't get myself to do a third. But but I've got live scope, and then I have 360 as well. Right. And it's just like when you start adding all this stuff, you're dead on. I mean, it's just it's funny to think that people really complain about where bass boat prices have gone, and like everything, right? I don't blame people for being like, my gosh, these are getting ridiculous. But when you look at it and you're putting $20,000 to $30,000 literally in grass and then power poles, right? And then and everything else that goes into these boats, and then a $25,000 motor on the back. Like that's another aspect. Well, really, there's not as much margin, I think, as people realize.
Right. And I'll be the first to admit, like I way overanalyze marketing stuff a lot. And the thing, like I've seen, because I've been posting stuff about this boat, and people are writing stuff like, if that's another $100,000 boat, you'll never sell one. I'm like, what about all the other ones that are already out there? Because somebody's buying those. Or I hope I'll say something like, we're trying to build the best boat ever.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it's cheaper than all the rest of them. How would that be possible?
Yeah.
To build the best boat ever, to build the best boat ever, you have to have better materials, right? And you can't do that. And there's not a lot of corporate greed that everybody like. We have some guys in finance and in plant management at Ikon that are doing everything they can to get the price as low as we can. You have to. It's a profitable business,
right?
But there's a big misconception that if you're going to be a bass fisherman, the only way you can do it is if you get the most expensive boat. And I don't know why that is, because they're not all driving Bugattis,
right,
or Ferraris.
Right.
When it comes to cars, they don't think, well, I need to be able to have something to get to work. The only thing I can do is buy this $4 million car. They know that they can't. So if you're not a guy that fishes for a living, or is super into the sport, and you're financially where you can be, maybe you're not buying the Mac Dad top of the line boat.
Right.
I drive 30-something thousand miles a year pulling a boat, but I don't go into a GM dealership or whatever and go, give me that Escalade with all the boxes checked.
Right.
You know what I mean? I bring it down to my price range a little bit, and I don't sit there and go, I'm not going to be able to drive because that Cadillac Escalade is $110,000. Well, I'm just not buying it. And I spend way more time. As much as I fish, I still spend more time in my truck. So it's just it's a little, got to educate the market a little bit on, who wouldn't want to, the top of the line bass boat, but we just can't make them cheaper. Not saying, I'm trying to remember all the things I'm allowed to say. Not saying that all of our boats, we're going to have models for everyone. That's about all I can say on that. Obviously, we're going to have more than one size, but we're going to have, in those sizes, we're going to have models for everyone.
Okay. Yeah. So it could be quality characteristics.
Not so much quality character, because we're just not going to stoop on the quality stuff.
Okay.
It'll be the options.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. Like the difference if you're getting a Ford Lariat versus a.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't think we could turn out a boat and knowingly put a cheaper hinge on the boat or something like that.
Right.
Like just our console on the front where you can open it up from the front and get into all the hood there.
I was so impressed with that.
It's so cool. And this is stuff that, like, I knew that was coming, but I didn't know all the stuff that went into testing the hinge. Like, they put a load tester on the hinge to make sure it wouldn't break if somebody fell into it.
What?
Yeah.
So how does that work? So you're telling.
So when that hinge is open, if you put a little flimsy hinge, the hood's pretty heavy fiberglass. If that was open and somebody stumbled and fell into it, they're going to hurt themselves versus breaking that off. Because here's what a lot of companies, they put cheaper products in, cheaper materials so they can sell them cheaper.
Sure.
But ultimately, for the success of the company, they have to put a warranty on there to be able to sell them. And they lose so much money repairing all the cheap stuff that they built. If they would just build a better product with better materials, you're going to end up being a more profitable company, and you can advance if you don't have to keep fixing everything that you already, you know what I mean? That you already sold. So that's we're not going to turn out anything that's cheap. We're just not going to do that.
That's just such a rabbit hole in the fishing industry and just around the friends that I have in the tournament scene in boat buying world. It's like, how many boats do you see that are, say it was a 2020 boat, and then a warranty claim happens, and it was like, my gosh, first of all, it took a long time, and then they're in a 2022 boat with a 2020 motor on it because they literally had to go replace the hull because of something, and it happens so much.
There's so many internal things of like making that not a thing. Like, because I've had, being a guy that depends on a boat 300 days a year, I've had to borrow boats. I had to borrow a boat for 2.5 months 2 years ago. From nobody you want to loan a boat to a guide for 2.5 months?
No,
absolutely not. I put almost as many hours as he in that 2.5 months as he had put on it in 2 years, and then I had to take it back and go, clean her up for you.
Yeah.
Do not look at the 44 hours I put on it, in 2.5 months. But like having a boat in the shop for 2.5 months to get minor things done to it, like get a ripped seat replaced and getting a new rub rail for it.
Right.
And stuff like that. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? So a lot of the stuff, like some of the boat companies, they've gotten so specific on things that they're manufactured specifically for that company, like a certain hinge. And we manufacture a lot of stuff in house. Like our seats are fully made in house. They're not shopped out to anybody else.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff, like if the gasket seal, the weather stripping on one of the lids starts to go bad.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's really good stuff. 3M makes stuff for everybody.
Yep,
I think that's who makes ours. You could probably replace that yourself by going to your local hardware store.
Right.
Instead of having to order from the boat company, they go, oh, that gasket went out. It's $395.
Right. They're making,
and we can get it to you in 6 to 9 weeks, which means 10.
Right.
So that's just a lot of the stuff, like keeping people on the water, because that's why you bought the boat. So not to see it sitting in a shop.
Right. Right. Well, it just, what I like about all this, I think what keeps going to my mind with Ikon is just the trying to professionalialize and push the industry forward when it comes to bass boats. I think that there's so much that when a new player comes in and they have that mindset, I think it's going to pull a lot of the market share, and the other aspect of it is that it makes everyone else better, and that's important to me, at least.
And Andy brought that up too, and it just kind of like, now I don't care if everybody gets better, but I would rather everybody stay worse than us. But it would be good for it is good for I learned something from listening to him talk. It is good for the industry to push it every once in a while, because I don't think anybody's been pushing the industry at all, to be honest with you. Everybody's like, look at our new. I made a comment to somebody. I said, you could take I wouldn't say an avid angler, but somebody that fishes quite a bit, doesn't watch all the tournaments, doesn't know who every fisherman is.
Sure.
And some of the new bass boats that are out now, you could probably remove the logos from them, right? Line 4 or 5 of them up, and then hand them the logos and say, go put this on the correct boat.
It's a good point. Very similar.
And see if he can get it done. And I'm sure he would mix up at least a couple of them.
Yeah.
And so that's all goes, like, I think if you said an Ikon on there, people would go, oh, yeah, that's an Ikon. So See those hips.
Those
And
hips,
everything
man.
else. They're the hips. I like them.
I
So
like it.
I like what they do, keeping that boat wide and everything. There's so much that goes into the whole iconic terrain, we call it, that makes everything. The center storage locker, like
that's what I remember in the video. You guys couldn't show that kind of
right.
stuff.
So that has it's big. It is so big, and I just know from I can say some stuff. What he couldn't show what was in there, but we have a bi-level tackle. So
oh, cool.
past boats that I've had, you have your Plano boxes. You know, you stand them up on them like this.
3700s.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the 37. You put them in there, and between the top of that laying sideways or on it or long ways, and the bottom of the lid is about 6-7 inches.
Right. Right.
In our storage compartment, we have 2 levels of them. Right, with a couple inches in between, and you still have that same 6 or 7 inches above it. So
deep.
You have it holds our system holds up to 31 Plano boxes and slots, and it's the top end's customizable. And then there's still a whole area up in front of it where you could put everything that I had in my last boat for guiding. I'm pretty sure, besides all the rods, everything that I had in all these compartments, I'm pretty sure I could fit into our center storage compartment.
Jeez.
I really don't understand. I understand why ours goes so deep now, but I still don't understand why everybody else had to make theirs so shallow.
Shallow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with our stringer system, which I don't think that's coming out in a video. So at launch, so I won't talk much about that. But there's a lot of engineers that build a lot more important things than bass boats that were involved in designing this.
Cool.
So this was not saying it was easy for them, but I had a lot of trust in them developing things.
Yeah.
We just told them what we wanted, and they were like, "Well, what do you have? What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's not my job. Just make it happen." Yeah. But then I'm here in Florida, right? The whole time, and I'm still working. I didn't start working full time for them until the first of the year, and it was all these engineers and all these guys at the plant, and then you had Brent up there, Brent Butler, who he's going to get all the credit, but he made all of this kind of come together, being the in-house bass fisherman.
Got it.
There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of the engineers that fish, and there's a lot of the guys in the plant that are, laying the carpet and fusing the deck and the hull together.
Yeah.
Dog yawned. They all fish, but Brent was the guy that was the serious. That's what he was hired for. He has a construction background, and he knows just as much as I do about the fishing industry.
Right.
And he brought all that stuff together, into a boat. And there was phone calls between he and I a lot. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Everybody seems to listen, which is a good thing too. That doesn't work a lot of times with people. They have a lot of experience guiding engineers over the years. And I hope I don't make any engineers mad in this, but they'll ask you questions just so they can tell you that your answer is wrong, and that's what impressed me when I went up there. I had engineers asking me questions, and then they were listening to what I said from a bass fisherman, not just going, well, we're not going to do that. Watch how much better we are. They were just like, that's interesting. Let's write that down and test it. And I was like, holy crap, that guy just listened to me, maybe we are into something. So I was pretty sold on the boat before it was even a mold made for it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Awesome. It's exciting stuff, man. I can't wait to really take a look at it, the Classic, and look at the hips like you're talking about and all the features. Is there anything else you were saying, anything else new that we can talk about right now before the Classic?
This is something that mattered to me that's really dumb, but it mattered to me. It's hot down here, right? Every morning I'm buying a bag of ice, right?
Yep.
And past boats that I've had, I mean, we get 92-degree water temperature with heat index 118 in the middle of the summer by lunchtime, and your whole bag of ice is gone at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, you can buy a $19 cooler at Walmart that'll hold ice at least all day, and this cooler not insulated? So that was a big deal. So our coolers will hold. I fished Monday and Tuesday all day.
Yep.
Put a 7-pound bag of ice in the cooler at 5 o'clock in the morning, and didn't have to get one the next day.
Wow.
I still had ice for the whole next day, and it was 90 degrees out.
Wow.
So it's an insulated cooler. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's stuff that people appreciate, you know?
Well, no, I think it is just like, I'll be real on my boat right now. Something that frustrates me, not even just the insulation part of the cooler, but
Yeah.
if there's rain or if I'm washing down the boat, whatever it may be, that gets into my cooler and then it makes my
Yeah.
cooler gross from the dirt
Yeah.
and stuff. And it's like just having a sealed gasket, like, I don't know,
Well,
just things like
they've
that.
thought about, keeping everything dry
Mhm.
and the cockpit draining, even if it's on the trailer and it's tilted forward,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Just keeping your compartments dry. There's no carpet in our compartments.
Love
And
that.
just in case they did get wet, they're all feed into an area to drain.
Nice.
If you don't want that, but it's a pluggable drain. So if you're one of those guys like, I don't want that thing to be unplugged, you can plug the drain. I keep mine unplugged because if water ever did get in there, I want it to drain out. And we have the electric fan that blows like everybody
Through
else
your
does, that
compartments.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's all finished liner. You're not going to get, you have spray flotation in the boats. Other boats that I've had as time goes on, I put 7 or 8 years of wear and tear on them in a year. You start looking down in the bilge and there's chunks of styrofoam that have broken off. Well, ours is all encased and sealed in there. So you're not going to have big chunks of styrofoam that are pulling out of your
Floating
boat.
around.
Yeah. Which has always been strange to me.
Right. That's always been strange to me too. And like you said, I think it goes back to the price that you're paying on boats and stuff. And it's just like things like the fit and finish of things. I don't know.
I'll tell you, I was worried. I was didn't want to say anything because we're so far along, and I didn't really. I'm just telling you this, but it's like I don't see any flotation. Like, do we not have flotation in our boats? I even Googled it. Are you required to have flotation in your boats? I was like, oh man, maybe we missed that. And then it was the next time, and I don't want to make myself stupid because I've been in the industry for so long, and I went back and I saw we went into the factory. We were actually pulling one of the boats out of the mold for the Classic. And I was like, that's where all the insulation is because it's sprayed in and then it's capped off and sealed.
Sure.
And I was like, whew. I go, there's all of our insulation, right? And Brent goes, yeah. I go, yeah, that's what I thought it
was. I love it.
Yeah,
I like that honesty, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Last question I have is just around contingency programs. I think we've seen a lot of improvement there in everything, but in the bass boat industry, I've been very impressed here lately. Do you have any details on that? Will there be a contingency program?
I can tell you that we want to have the best contingency program there is, and I can tell you a lot of we just basically you can just read everybody else's contingency programs, right?
Yep.
And then make a better one, right?
I like it.
And then I think there's some that, in my opinion, fluff. They make their contingency programs look really well,
right?
Because I'm not going to name names, but you can figure it out. Like when an Elite Series or a MLF tour guy gets an additional $50,000 for winning,
right?
How is that a good contingency program? Because there's a 99% chance that guy did not go to a dealership and buy the boat.
Sure,
he's on a pro staff if he's fishing of some sort. There's guys that aren't getting free boats that are fishing that stuff, but I guarantee there's not very many Elite Series or MLF guys that went and financed the boat for 20 years,
right? Like or had it fully, having some sort of discount or some incentive,
right? Something. Right. So they're paying the biggest amounts of money to guys that are already representing them, and not your customer that walks into a dealership and pays full price for it. So that's one of the things we're leaning towards is paying the contingency money to the guys that are our customers.
Right. The majority of your customers.
Yeah. Because you asked about the contingency program.
Yeah.
I've had tons of people ask about it. Right. And it's always great if you're a pro staffer and you get an extra $50,000 for winning a tournament.
Right.
But how come this guy that's watching you and asking for your autograph doesn't have a chance of winning bigger money? So we're going to, any money that we'd be paying to that kind of stuff is going to be brought down into the more grassroots level stuff.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
But I think there's still some things I'm fighting, I'm fighting for a few things on our contingency program too, but it'll end up being the best one in the industry. So
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, last question, everyone that comes on the show, Chuck, especially someone like yourself, just fishing wise, I like to ask your 3 biggest largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, where you were when you caught them and what you caught them on.
Oh, okay. So my biggest personal bass, largemouth bass that I've caught was 11.7.
Heck yeah.
That was on the Conway chain. My wife and I were dating at the time. She was actually fishing with me. I think it might have been
That's
the first
awesome.
second time I took her, but yeah. But it was on a spinnerbait. I think it was a Boogerman spinnerbait, and I watched it eat it.
No way.
Yeah. And I got all excited. She doesn't come from a fishing family or anything, and she's like, "Why are you freaking out?" This is the biggest bass I've
Freaking
ever caught.
giant.
No, yeah. But I've boated that largemouth over 12 pounds
Oh,
that my
wow.
customers have caught.
Yeah. Cool.
5 of them, but I've never caught them. So Conway chain's my biggest. My biggest smallmouth was a 515.
Heck yeah.
And that was actually on Lake Champlain, of all places.
That
Which
place is
Champlain is not really known for giant smallmouth. There's a lot of 4-pounders and stuff. And I caught it. I think it was the last. I fished 2 opens there, so like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I caught it 2 days before the tournament.
Of course.
Which is not when you want to catch it. But
Right.
It was a 515 smallmouth. I caught it on a dragging a jig over a rock pile.
Awesome.
My biggest spot was on, I think it was also in practice.
Always.
It might go all the way back to when I fished FLW. So 22 years ago on a drop shot. And I think it was on Wheeler Lake, drop shotting under a bridge. Because I was a kid then. I was in my early 20s. I had seen somebody drop shot in bridges because we don't do a lot of drop shot in bridges here in Florida. So
yeah.
And I think I caught that in practice too. So it was like 4.2, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Love that stuff. Love hearing about that. And I'm glad you've been around.
That was your last question, but I think I told you before. I have breaking news for you.
Let's hear it.
Brent Butler and I are not just company men, company men with real job. We're also starting a thing called the Ikon Boats Tailgate Tour.
Okay.
Where Brent and I are going to be, we have Jacob Wheeler, and Brent and I are going to be active members of the pro staff.
Okay.
Whilst being fully employed, and we're going to do something that other boat companies don't do. Instead of all the cinematic, heavily produced social media and commercial content, you're going to get all that from us, but you're also going to get to know everything about the people at Ikon through Brent Butler and I.
Wow.
You're going to get to see the plant, some of the stuff that we deal with developing new boats, just help my marketing side. You're going to get to see a lifestyle thing of 2 guys that work for the company while we're also doing our fishing stuff. So there might be somebody here in Florida that goes and buys a new Ikon, and I call them up and go fish with them.
Wow.
We might go visit a dealer or go to a place that an event that he's supporting. We'll be at the plant. Brent's fishing the Toyota series there, the Central, and I plan on fishing probably the Southern Toyota series and other events like that. So it's going to be Brent and I giving you all the stuff that you always wanted to know about other boat companies. So cool. Like you go ask somebody that bought a brand new whatever and ask them to name 2 people that work for the company.
Right.
And we hope that people will be able to name at least 20 or 30 of the people that work for Ikon. So through this tailgate tour. So we've been working a lot on behind the scenes on that. Our trucks are going to be wrapped, tailgate tour. So people will know we're coming. We're going to interact with all kinds of people and video, everything.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
That'll be cool. Yeah.
Something to look forward to for sure. And excited.
Different boats and different marketing. So
awesome. Good. I'm excited to see everything.
Yeah.
Going forward, man, and we'll have to get you back on down the road, maybe post classic sometime this summer, sometime, just see how things are going.
Yep. If awesome. I'm not too busy. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Absolutely. Have a good one,
Chip. Right. Yep. Thank you. Yep.